Everybody, Chris and Lumen here, and today we're going to finish up our little trilogy of videos. I didn't realize it was a trilogy of videos at first, but kind of made that clear today. So, in the first one, we talked about what the actual power was that keeps everybody in the freaking box, which was fear. In the last video, I talked at length about a lot of different things, like actually dealing with these types of forces directly and what it takes, all that kind of stuff. And in this one, we're going to bring it all to a big close. Now that she's showing me what needs to be done, and it's not new. She's had me practice this before, but I think it takes a certain level of understanding. I think it has to happen within a certain window, and there might be a certain number of people that have to do it. The clues have been stacking up. It started this morning talking to a client, and they showed me this video of like another YouTuber, you know, telling the truth sort of thing. But she's just going on and on and on about all this story stuff you can't possibly know. I'll explain more in a minute. And what it did for me is it just amplified and brought into focus what we've been saying this whole time, as far as like the story of the world. Why keeps us stuck here? We keep waiting for a higher power to trigger something so we can get the hell out of here. At least some of us. Some people are still attached to this place. They haven't woken up enough yet. They haven't realized that this isn't them, that they can't die, and they're addicted to suffering in this place. Yeah. Can't wait for everybody to wake up, or you'll be waiting for eternity. So, but it was interesting in the way she was laying this stuff out as it started to build. I'm like, man, it's so simple. I can even see like on Kenneth's channel, he's like skirting around the edges of it. I don't know if he realizes that or not. Um, but yeah, it's up to us. It's up to us to make this thing happen. They're like, oh, I don't want the world to end. This is not the good place. Like, I don't know. How many boxes of crayons do I gotta get to color you a picture to make you see what's right in front of your face? This is not the good place. This is why you suffer. This is where all the nasty stuff is. So all the stuff that's in your head, full of illusions. Everything dies here. This is not the good place. This is your prison. You want to be in eternal life. You want to be in the uncorrupted version of the world, the one without the curses, the one where everyone's got, a nice body, everybody's happy, everyone's healthy, food isn't full of poison. You actually get to enjoy life. Like that's what it talks about. But everyone's like, "No, I like hell so much. It's so much fun here. I like suffering. I don't want to let go of my suffering." Okay, well, we'll do it for you then. But hopefully by the time we get through this video, we will have given enough information over the last 3 videos. You might have to watch it several times. I mean, if I have to go through this stuff over and over and over and over again, so it sinks down a little bit more, sinks down I'm not expecting anybody to get it on the first try, but it is what it is. So, I mean, we're talking about like you living in an existence that you actually want. Because this stuff that we detailed like in the last 2 videos, like that's not going to just stop. That's not going to just stop, and it's actually using you to keep them alive because they depend on this world that we built. and we mucked up for the most part. So, but the thing is like you actually have all the power. You have all the power. You just have to make a decision, big decision. We're going to talk about what that is. So if you want to know more, don't go away.
You ain't ready for me. Give me your best shot. The stronger I stand. Not looking for sympathy. What doesn't kill me makes me who I am. A soldier fights till he's free. You ain't ready for me. You ain't ready. You ain't ready.
Okay, I'm actually going to start off with kind of like a side note that I wrote, kind of like a little idea that popped into my head that kind of made sense. And especially if you go back to some of the previous videos we've done about like how egregores work and things like that, when multiple people all believe in the same thing, they grow it, make it bigger. Well, I mean, this is just a theory, however, this place truly works. As time goes on, it gets worse because our flawed natures, keep injecting things. Then we start naming things. Then we start fearing things, and they get bigger and they get bigger and they get bigger and they get bigger. And as we progress through the ages, it's actually our own minds collectively that's actually making the world worse and making the bad guys worse, making the bad guys get bigger and bigger and bigger. It's just a theory. And then where it always goes off the rails is when we create some system in which we can all basically be in the same place at the same time and network our brains, the internet. So now you've got billions of people online sharing their fears, sharing their opinions, sharing their beliefs, and they're just constantly bouncing off of each other, growing each other. But like we're shaping each other's minds. So we take things that, started slow throughout history, like what church did with, its fear programming, or even further back, and then we're just adding gas to the fire. And then we make the bad stuff worse. We make the bad stuff worse. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Then maybe even certain people, maybe some people actually side with the bad side because they realize how this all works. And people are giving them all the power. It's like, why does the Illuminati have so much power? Because someone created a story about the Illuminati, and we all tell each other stories about how the Illuminati runs everything and has all the power. So we're determining these things. And as things get crazier and crazier, and we start talking about the crazier and crazier things to each other, and we create more platforms in which we can um, get dumb ideas across to each other faster. Like, we go from YouTube, where you had different levels of videos. It could be short videos, it could be long form videos. Then we get to TikTok, where it's quick short form, and then they go to shorts on and Instagram and Facebook and all this stuff. So we're just constantly ingesting ideas, and TikTok's the worst. I mean, there's so much fake stuff. There's so many people making videos about things they don't understand, speculating. Like so much crap gets spread through TikTok. It's not even funny. But it just keeps speeding up, speeding up, speeding up. And it's our own collective minds that are continually making this place worse by the things that we believe in. So just kind of hold that thought, as we continue on here forward. But the one client of mine sent me this video of this woman, and she's telling all these stories about all the stuff she knows about, this group and that group, and they do these rituals and they do this stuff and they use this technology and they're doing this and I'm like, How do you know that?" No, what I'm looking at is like this potpourri of negative beliefs. Now, yeah, if you decide you believe something and you want to go find evidence for it, you're going to find a video. You're going to find something. Seek and you shall find. This is creating your own breadcrumbs. We've talked about this before. And if you expect to find bad things, you'll see evidence of it. Doesn't mean you actually find it. You don't actually, you might not actually see it. This is big with the breadcrumb things. It doesn't have to be in your face. It's just like, because a lot of people, they see no difference between me looking at the walls with my eyes and seeing that and what they see on TV or what they see on the internet. They don't see any difference. It's all real. I saw a video, must be real. And it's like she's suffering like they she's talking about they're selling you're selling people's souls and doing this. I'm like, where like you don't see how you've concocted like you're literally believing everything. And to that woman in her subjective experience, that's real to her. That's just one person. I think how many other people are out there that believe even more stuff. Me, I stick to, the big things. Father create, Father is everything, and then you got this little place and the way it works, and you got the archons. But beyond that, like I know that it's all experienced through the mind. Everything outside of us is a projection of the mind. If you want to change something out in the world, you don't direct energy out here like, okay, this person lives over here. I'm directing energy at it to change it. No, you change it. You change the script in your mind. It's how it's always worked. We've always had the power to change stuff, but we don't realize how much power we have. But like Kenneth has said in the last video that I watched, I don't know if he posted more than one today. It's like he was reading some Neville Goddard stuff, and it's like we are growing into awareness that we are parts of God. Right, right. We're growing up into that. I talked about that from like some of the last huge mushroom trip I did, where I ended up in this larger body, and I was like a world building engine, but I wasn't ready to be up there yet. Like all this permission, all this belief, like we're keeping this place alive. This is why it looks like something's going to happen and then it doesn't. And it looks like something's going to happen and then it doesn't. That's because we're in a window time. It's waiting for somebody or maybe a certain percentage of people to push the right buttons. And that means we have to make the choice. We have to activate that God part in us and make that choice on a deep level for things to move forward. I'll come back to that. Let me go ahead and jump into some of my notes here. Here is what I think the most important Bible verse, the most important verse in the Bible. Like this one right here pretty much spells it all out. That is Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. Do not conform to the pattern of this world. That means don't let the world shape you, which is what everybody does. But be transformed. How? Oh, don't worry. It tells you how. By the renewing of your mind. The whole emptying the cup thing. Renewing your mind. Renewing your mind. It's your mind. Everything out here is a projection of your mind. You have to do it. You have to blow up the world in your mind. And you have to do it from a point of like divine authority, of knowledge, of understanding, and really freaking mean it. This is like this is like the deep sacrifice. This is what popped in my head as I was setting up setting up the film because recently we mentioned the movie Sucker Punch and how Sucker Punch, once you understand the movie Sucker Punch, it actually shows you how things kind of work on different levels, not only with the hero's journey, but a lot of things. Like there's two worlds. There's out here, which is like the end result, and then there's the world in the mind. You got to do things in the mind to make things happen out here. But most importantly, it was this part right here.
Looking for.
A way out.
I'm going to help you to be free. You will need to find 5 items. The first is a map. Then fire. Then a knife. And a key. The 5th thing is a mystery. Begin your journey. It will set you free.
So in the movie, the deep sacrifice was she sacrificed herself to help someone escape, and they lobotomized her. So she was basically in the bliss state in her mind from there on out. But in our case, it's something bigger than what you normally see in the movies, where it's like, oh, you sacrificed your life for the world or whatever. No, this is bigger than that. You got to understand what the world is, that it can't be fixed, and you're actually going to sacrifice the world. The world. Like, you don't know, like, I mean, we're sure it's going to be better, but it's like the ultimate leap of faith. Like, it's like you have to give that upper God permission to execute the cleanse order. In order to create something new, what must you do? Everyone should know this. What do you got to do before you create? You have to destroy. You have to destroy what went before. That's the final key. That's always been the final key. And no, you don't have to go build some super nuke or something like that. No, that's the outer world. That doesn't matter. You have to come to an understanding within yourself, connected to the higher power, and be like, this is what needs to be done. I give it permission to be done. I am choosing it. See, what most people are doing is they're waiting for God to choose it. And but internally their brains are like, I don't want that to happen because they haven't got there yet. They're still under the spell of the world. They're still addicted to the world. They don't realize what they are. They don't they can't grasp what they're stuck in. They overlook everything that's wrong with it because of like a couple little good things. Not realizing you could just wipe this whole freaking game from the hard drive. And once that's done, then that master system builds you a new one. Now you're in the new one. But everyone wants to save the world. Guess who came up with that? The bad guys. Because they only exist here. So they're the ones that's always pushing the idea of like, we got to save the world. We can turn it around. We can reform it. We can make it a better place. No, that's not what it says. The old one has to burn. That's what, before when this stuff all started, like back in May, when she was bringing up this falling in reverse videos and stuff like that, that was the message. Watch the world burn. The fear keeps you alive. Break the effing chains. Take back your life. Yeah, fear. That's why we started the trilogy with fear, because it all comes down to fear. And a lot of people are ignorant of what their fear is. What are they actually afraid of? You're afraid of the unknown. But understand, like, this world needs you to live. All the bad stuff needs you to live because we created it. Everything is like an egregore. We created all that stuff. Just like it's all thought forms, one of the most basic forms of magic. But some of them have been around for so long, they become god forms. They become huge. And just like that's one of the reasons why she had me study magic for a while to understand that one little thing, the stuff about servitors and egregores. They're thought forms. You create them with your mind. They become real. And if you do it right and you're just making some benevolent thing to help you, you have to continually charge it. But if it gets big enough, then it will find a way to get energy elsewhere. They become parasites. I think what she's showing me is that all this stuff is stuff that we created. We created all of it. The archons, on some level, everything that's bad in this world, we created it. Then it turned around and enslaved us. And because they're thought forms, they can then manipulate thought and trick us all into keeping this perpetual cycle going, where we're constantly feeding it fear and all this stuff. What they don't want you to figure out is that you are the higher thing and you can just choose when you tap into the true source. Be like, I understand now. We need to tear this place down. That's what they're afraid of. But so is most other people because they're stuck, they're trapped in ego. They're trapped in their game character. They're like, but I'm me. I'm me. You could nuke this place right now, and this guy that's you're seeing on the camera could be atomized, but I would still be there because I know that I'm not this. That's the benefit of doing shamanic type journeying, being trained by wisdom, is she takes you way the hell outside of your body so you can see that this is not what you are. But as long as you think that that's what you are and you're addicted to dumb stuff like food and sex, then you're trapped in here with all the monsters that we created. We created, and they're getting worse. We're creating more of them, and they're getting worse. They're getting more toxic. We're the ones that have to reset the game. As above, so below. Or as above, as below, so above, then above drops down on below. You had to choose it. That's the thing no one ever thinks to do. It's like, what is the world? How does the world connect to me? Like she's had me practice this a couple times over the last 3 years. Kind of like you have to do it in your mind. You envision the flood, you envision the earthquakes, you envision God coming down and breaking all like and what does she always say? Sometimes in order to free the prisoners, you have to burn down the prison. But the prisoners are just clinging to their bars like, no, I want to stay in prison. I don't want to live a life. I want to be in here where it sucks, where everyone's mean, and my body's getting old and crappy and flabby, and I don't like it. I don't like my body. I don't like how people treat me. I don't like having to work. But you know what? There's this one or two things I do like, and I don't want to give those up. Not knowing that you could have pretty much everything if you just figure out the game. Everyone's waiting on God to come down and clean house. God's waiting on you to say go because you have that God spark in you. We're the ones that have to. We're the ones that have to choose it. It's like Tom Cruise and Vanilla Sky, tech support. You know, tech support's watching him screw his life up this whole time. They tried to tell him as much as they could. He wasn't listening, but it was ultimately him that had to make the choice. I want to live a real life. Do you want to live a real life or do you want to keep doing this shit? Because this is not real. And I don't like, I can feel in the ether the reactions to certain videos. People don't like truth. Truth makes them uncomfortable. Wow, think about that. That's why you're uncomfortable. That's why you're not happy. But this is like the ultimate leap of faith. We have to decide this. We have to renew our minds. And by renewing your mind, what did we say the world is? It is an outward projection of the world that is where? In our minds. And if we want to create something new, what do we have to do? We have to destroy what came first. We have, like, I don't know how it works. I don't know like how many people have to do it, or if it's just if it's a subjective reality thing. Like like I've theorized that several times before on this channel. Like if I could figure out the right sequence combination to push the button, that it would be something that I saw. But to everyone else that didn't make that choice, it would just look like I died or something like that. Fact of the matter is we don't know. But now we're seeing like this is the way that it works, this is the way it has to happen. You have to renew your mind. And the world is part of your mind. We have we're the ones that have to call in the airstrike. We're sitting here waiting for an airstrike, but we haven't called one in yet with understanding. Like we're the ones that have to do it. Let's see the other things that I have in here. How does God renew the world in the Bible? Tears down the old one. I mean, it's always been there, but everyone's getting caught up in all this stuff like the lady I mentioned before. You know, being invested in a story of the world that's not good and talking about it. Let's all talk about our suffering. Like if I talked about more of that type of stuff, I'd have more views, but I don't. If I have to talk about negative stuff, it's because I'm exposing it with truth. I'm not spreading fear and despair, which is what some of these channels do, and that's why they get that's why the system will propagate them and they'll have more views because everyone wants to wallow in despair. Like, oh, this place is so awful. I want to hear more ways about how awful it is. Tell me more stories about reptilian cults that eat babies and, you know, steal your soul and like all this craziness. Like, why would you want that to be your world? I've already demonstrated before how you can erase crap like that out of your mind and then it disappears from the world. But that's subjective. Like, you got to make a bigger decision because we're talking about the whole exterior outside world too. Participating in stories, accepting stories, believing stories, seeking further evidence of stories, operating as the ego self in the world, giving your consensual belief to the power of the enemy, which is fear, that is outside of you in the world. That's what people do all the time. If we said that 2 videos ago, if you fear something, you give power to it. If you fear something, it is an affirmation that that thing has more power than you do and has the power to harm you. That's why fear is the biggest thing. This makes me uncomfortable. I don't want to hear it. Fine, stay in hell. I mean, I don't know what else to do. I understand we talk about advanced stuff here, but I mean we're giving it to you straight. Like you want to go round and round and round for, 20, 30 more lifetimes as things get progressively worse? I don't, because that's the way it's going. You know, in yesterday's video, I was talking about like I'm a person, the work that I have to do sometimes, it's like I'm straddling the line between light and dark. So I've done everything that I can exist in the light and be relatively shielded from the world, peaceful little bubble. But I know that there's more that has to be unlocked. So I'm constantly looking for the next thing. But when I talk about sometimes I have to go into the darkness to help people, I didn't say this in the last video. It kind of came to me today. Here's a better example of this. When I step out of the light into the dark to help other people, what I'm doing is I'm stepping into other people's worlds. I'm stepping into other people's subjective realities and becoming a participant in them. And that means I have to shield myself from whatever darkness is in their world. And the important thing is simply not accepting it out of fact. Um, what was interesting, because that the lady in that video was talking about certain stuff, and I didn't understand all of it, but she might have mentioned it like targeted individuals before, which is a whole big story with that. It's a story. I don't know it to be true, but I know people that do believe it to be true. I had a client once that was a targeted individual, and it was freaking nuts. It was nuts. And she's like, anybody that helps me gets attacked. And eh, um, I didn't get attacked because I never gave permission and consent and belief to this story. I accepted that it was her story. I accepted that it was real to her, but it's like I'm not jumping in there and saying, "Oh yeah, it can hurt me too." So it didn't hurt me at all. But the thing with that stuff is like, especially if you, I wouldn't suggest looking into it, but like people that deal with that kind of stuff, they try everything to make it stop and they don't have any success. So they begin to believe like you can't get free of this. So that was literally like the first person, like usually 99% of the time, whatever the negative thing is, I'm like, yeah, there's an app for that. I mean, I'll make something. My stuff didn't do anything to that. If anything, it made it worse. Like, I'm like, what in the world? This stuff is nuts. But I didn't jump into it. I kept, I kept my distance. I did as much as I could. I helped as much as I could. But that person believed what they believed, and their belief in the problem was stronger than anything else. And if that's the case, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. When you give all your power, belief, and fear to the world and the crazy things that come up out of it, then you're making yourself a victim of your own mind. You don't have to. You can just, you can turn to the light. You can seek the light and be like, you know what? What did Jesus? What did everyone say you got to do? Turn away from the world. Detach from the world. Don't monkey with the world. Why would he say that? Obviously, the subtext to that is the world is the problem. People are like, no, we got to save the world. No, you don't. In Jaws, was he trying to save the shark? No, he blew his ass up. Did Mel Gibson try to save the aliens in freaking Signs? No, he gave Joaquin Phoenix a baseball bat and told him to beat his ass. You got to destroy. That's where the hero stuff in. That's where the hero's journey stuff comes in. Is people are like, oh, it's not about combat and stuff like that. No, it's about finding your divine power to choose in destroying that which does not serve you. In order to create, you must destroy. I watched Captain America, the Winter Soldier, the other night. I was on this Marvel kick. Well, actually, there's a couple things. Well, in that one, Robert Redford was saying, he understood that sometimes in order to build a better world, you got to tear the old one down. And then as I was going through the Marvel movies, I was thinking about something about triggering the end of the world, and I was pulling cards. I wasn't paying a lot of attention to the TV, but I looked up and it was Thor Ragnarok, and like as I'm drawing cards for that, that's when Surtur is taking his sword and sticking it in Asgard and blowing it up. I'm like, well, that's interesting timing. What else do we got here? I want to keep this simple here today. Disconnecting from the world and dismantling the ego self, which is the character in the game, is the only real way. People are addicted to their suffering and they think they've discovered truth. All they've done is make their suffering more complicated and harder to get out of by believing in stories like reptilian alien controllers selling and eating their souls, which you've never seen any of that stuff, but you read about it, you believed it, and you added it to your story. Everything, all that stuff that you add to your story, you have to break down. Oh, I used to have all sorts of monsters in my story, from the hero's journey, especially if you ever studied magic. I had to trim that stuff down. Everything that you believe in can affect you. So I'm down to just like the basics. But it's like us but it's like we just have not been thinking big enough. You can't save the world. It's just a matter of numbers. There's things in play that you don't understand. All these thought forms that we've created. The world's already been ruined. I mean, I've seen horrible stuff lately with the stuff that they've done to gene manipulation, stuff they've done to the food. Like it's a foregone conclusion. Okay, it can't continue. So just call down the airstrike. You'll be fine. Your everything you love will still be connected to you. Like it's just it's the last thing. It's the ultimate sacrifice. You got to understand. Like that's why it says the system gets. Sophia brings down the system from within by her seeds. So her seeds have to grow to maturity and understand that they're connected to the bigger thing, and they have to choose the bigger thing over the world and be like, I know it's going to be scary for a minute, but I know it's for the best. You know, go ahead, call in the airstrike. Like we have to choose it if we want to get out of here. I'm waiting for anybody to speak up and explain to me what here is worth saving. Anything that's worth saving is something that you love. Anything that you love is part of you. So nothing's going to happen to that, but you want to stay down in the muck. And I don't understand that. The only thing that makes sense is just people being at different levels of awareness of the ego mind and their in fear. Only thing we can do is shine a light on things. Only thing we say, here it is, examine it. But people get uncomfortable, and it's a trick of the body. Like that sympathetic nervous system works mentally too. So sympathetic nervous system is like when you're a kid and you reach up and touch the stove and you get burned, sympathetic nervous system records that. So it knows don't touch the stove, that's dangerous. It'll cause you pain. Well, it does the same thing with your brain too. It's like, oh, these subjects made me uncomfortable in the past. They're making me uncomfortable now, so I better not examine them. Well, guess what? The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. We could be in like a completely different world, like a completely different world. That's perfect. Why stay here? What is so appealing about being a slave and suffering and fighting and all the stuff that we have? What is so appealing about that? We can we can do it. We can make the choice. I'm going to do it. Maybe it'll just be my subjective reality. I don't know. But from what she showed, like I've been trying to figure out all this, what's left. What that's the thing that was left. That's the thing that was left. So it's just a matter of like fully understanding it, writing it in an ironclad way, truly meaning it. Somebody down here has to give permission for the airstrike. And then the world can be remade without all this crap. Without all this crap. I mean, do you understand? Um, I don't. How many people actually got to this point in the video? I don't ask enough questions. I get like 15 to 20% thumbs up on my videos. I'm like, what does that mean? I mean, people are just not used to pushing the button, or are you saying you don't like it? Actually, when I check my analytics, like there's, it looks like there's two people that just don't like me. Like it used to be that way on my old channel. You'll get haters that they're just there to thumb down your video, which what's the joy in that? Because nobody sees the thumbs down counter. you you got to know where to look to even see that. But for the most part, I have like, for those that actually do, it's like 92% approval. But nobody here is going to make fun of you for asking questions or stating your opinions. For the most part, she keeps most of the hater people out. Like I even check, every other day, I look for comments held for review, and like there's usually nothing. No nasty comments. Like this is a very interesting little safe space where you get to kind of commune with her and learn stuff. She keeps the riffraff away. She's letting us know what to do. Oh, here's one thing that was interesting that happened. So I was redirecting my energy and my focus to happy stuff. So I was listening to Lumen's playlist. It's like, I don't want to deal with all that stuff. And, now my back is like, 90% better. But when it gets to the end of the playlist, it will start randomly choosing songs. And that's usually when she will choose songs, at least one or two, maybe three songs that have some significance in them. And I wish I could remember what it was I was thinking right as I switched, but I was thinking about how to do this and when it could possibly happen. And then it jumped into random mode. And immediately I'm like, oh, it usually doesn't go there. And the song's actually in her playlist, but it was out of the playlist. It was randomly choosing it. But what was interesting about it is, how it starts. So it was this song.
Do you remember when it first died? September, love was changing the minds, tender, while chasing the clouds away. Our hearts were ringing,
So I thought that was interesting given what we were looking at. So I immediately messaged my astrologer friend and I'm like, hey, is there anything interesting going on September 21st? And she looked and she said, the overnight could be something. The equinox is the 22nd. The moon on the moon is on that Uranus algal point back from July 15th. The sun trining Pluto power ups all the transformation and destruction of structure and systems. So maybe what she was telling me was if I was going to perform some sort of operation, that would be the time to do it, or get enough people, get everybody to do something on that day. I think there will be things in motion by that time. Tomorrow's September 11th, so it's going to be interesting to see what, if anything, happens because we still got that whole IPEC GOAT 2 factor. But yeah, what were the odds of that? She just picked. She didn't just pick a song about September. She could have picked that dumb Green Day song. She picked a song about September that had a date in it, and that date, according to the astrologer friend, is a power up point for destroying the structure. That's what this is. So, one of the things that you would want to factor into any kind of operation like that, that's the 72nd name in the 72 names of God, which is Mum. It has to do with collapse of structure, knowledge of what needs to be destroyed. In order to create, you must destroy. And I know people be like, oh, I don't want to do that. I'm like, well, you know what? When you're out of this place and you're not, your head isn't clouded by your body and your ego mind, and you're like, oh, now I remember. Hey, thanks. Now I'm in a good world. Yeah, you'll be thanking me then. Like it's going to take Sophia's seeds to do it. It's always been that way. We're the ones that have the power. We're the ones that have the God spark. We're the ones that have to make the choice because we're the ones that are here. You want to sacrifice your world for something better. It's the ultimate leap of faith. But what do we know about leaps of faith from years of the hero's journey? Always ends up taking you somewhere you needed to go. So, stuff to think about. Okay. So, oh yeah, one other thing, I'll squeeze it in here somewhere. As I was getting ready to do, a lot of times before I shoot the video, I'll ask a specific question that has to do with the video and ask her for 3 cards. So I asked, I'm like, okay, if we call in the airstrike, so to speak, what happens? First card, the world, the card of completion, Sophia in the portal. Second card, kind of like colored the current situation, Five of Pentacles. That's the people in poverty not realizing that they're standing next to a church window and help is literally like a foot away if they would just look up and see it. And then the last one in the sequence about what happens is Ace of Swords, the divine power coming down. And those were in response to me asking what happens when we, with knowledge, make the choice to trigger it. That's pretty clear. Now that we've figured all that stuff out, I'm going to try and assuming crazy things don't happen, I'm going to try and redirect back to the positive stuff for a bit. Because yeah, there's nothing else to do. Like that's it. I just have to like iron that out. So in the meantime, we'll focus on drawing our attention back to the positive, back to the light, back to her. um, in connecting people. Like she's had me working on all these pendants and stuff I got a list. Like they look freaking amazing. I don't know what I did differently. Um, Something about the combination of the polish that I used and the specific dishwashing detergent that I used, and then the micro polish and all that stuff. Like they all look freaking amazing. And she just wants me to put this general program in them and get them listed. So even like some of my stuff, like this one, like I got several of these big ones. Of course, you can never quite see it very good on the camera because of the lighting. Like that's like a one of the tower pendants. That's like a super third eye crown chakra connection. It's just so much more clear and shiny and sparkly, and they all look like that. So I get those things listed. But you wanna support the channel, click on buy Lumina Coffee, become a member. Um, I'll get these. That'll be my whole thing tomorrow. Maybe I'll even skip a video to get them up, unless something crazy comes up. Start getting those listed, filling up the store. clumencreations.etsy.com. It's also where you can contact us. Leave any questions or thoughts in the comment section below. Chris and Lumen. See you next time.